Okay, so we're going over sales agreements. If you're trying to pass your real estate exam in the state of Pennsylvania, this may help you. And this unit is called sales contracts. Okay, sales contracts. So, and of course, let me get my slideshow act together here. Because the last one we went over was what? Listing agreements, right? Mm-hmm. We can go through this one just as fast. So a purchase agreement is accumulate a cult. I always have trouble with this word. Culmination. How do you pronounce that? Accumulation. Is it? Culmination of marketing efforts. Helping buyers find a property. Real estate licensees expedite the negotiations. An agreement. The priority is the client that they represent. So that's where your focus has to be. And if you're a dual agent, you have to have equal. So let's talk about disclosure. Seller property disclosure statement. We went over that. 1 to 4 units. You shouldn't have to talk about that anymore today. Does a 100-acre farmland need a seller disclosure statement? How about a gas station? Got underground tanks. Does it need a disclosure? No. How about a 20-unit apartment building? No. How about a 1 to 4 unit? 1 to 4 unit. I hope you remember it, Jace. 1 to 4 unit residential, single family. Yes. Okay. Buyers are obligated to discover any problems. Licensees are obligated to disclose known facts about the property in writing. You just can't tell the buyer, the seller told me that the sewer line is plugged up. You have to get it in writing and have the buyer sign off on it. Any material facts that are significant with the seller disclosure, we went over that. Latent defects, we don't have to go over all that. How do you pronounce that? Stigmatized. Sig, like a cigarette.
No, stig.
Skig.
Stig.
Sig. Stigmatized properties. Man, I should have paid more attention in 4th grade. My teacher was Mrs. Nesty. I remember who she was because I had her twice. Society has branded properties as undesirable because of events that occurred in them. Typical stigmas include criminal events such as homicides, illegal drug manufacturing, gang-related activities, paranormal effects, Dana would like that, or other tragedies such as suicides. Licensees are cautioned to seek legal counsel for guidance when dealing with a stigmatized property. So this is what I'm going to tell you. If you go to list a house and there was a murder, a suicide, they were making crack, you better come see your broker or manager and say, hey, how should I handle it? Because it's very, very tricky. It's very, very tricky. Okay. And we have handled properties that have been said to be haunted. Really, I know 2 of them we've handled. Said to be haunted. We've handled properties where there have been mass murders in it.
Did the people stay in those houses?
Somebody's living in them. Some people look for that kind of stuff. I got an agent, Dana Evans. She wouldn't buy a haunted house in a minute.
Love it.
We've sold properties where people have hung themselves, shot themselves, all of those. But you have to handle it properly, okay? You have to handle it properly. There's no law that says you have to disclose. That's what's tricky. Is that what the book says? What's the book say about that? Because I want you to get this. I want you to get this. Somebody read the book tell me the language in the book. Seneca, okay. That's okay. What's the book say about stigmatized properties?
It says although some states have laws regarding the disclosure of such properties, which are designed to protect sellers and which are properties on the basis of the laws of the action.
Okay. So what it says is that there's laws regarding disclosure and that the seller does not have to disclose. Is that what it says? Is that how you read that? So if somebody got shot in the property, Jay, you don't have to disclose it. If somebody was making crack cocaine, they had a lab like Breaking Bad. That was a good show. I don't know if anybody's watched that. You don't have to disclose it. But didn't I say, if you're dealing with a stigmatized property, go talk to your broker. Because personally, at my office, I want it disclosed. So where it gets tricky, Samantha, is if there's a situation like that, and Seneca is the seller, I'm going to go to Seneca, and I'm going to say, hey, Sen. They call you Sen? Hey, Sen. I says, you know, we know that there was murder in this house. And the law states that we do not have to disclose. My policy is that I think we should. So if you want me to represent you, I think we should disclose that there was a murder in the house. And this is the reason why. Because if we don't, this is what's going to happen. As soon as you get a buyer and you close on sale, the first thing that the neighbor's going to do is run over and tell them that there was a murder here. Yeah, and then it's going to cause a problem. The buyer may feel that we tricked him into buying a house. He may sue us both. We may have to go to court.
But can he sue?
I don't know. You have to talk to an attorney about that. Okay, but I'm going to say that it could cause a lot of problems. So if you don't feel comfortable disclosing, you can list with another broker. Because I know that Tammy Haywood girl, she'll take anything.
That's right.
Okay, but if you want to list with me, I think we should disclose it just so that everybody's honest. Are you okay with that?
I was
most-
going to bring it up to you.
Yeah, and most of the time, if you explain it like that, because really it's true, because you know what's going to happen, the friggin' neighbor's going to run over the fucking next day, excuse my language, after closing, and say, hey, did you know? You know? So that's why you have to go see your broker, because sometimes I got to get involved in that call and talk to the person. Okay? Estimated statement of closing cost. Again, you got to do it. You got to provide the buyer and the seller with that before they enter into an agreement. We have a case right now where the buyer made an offer on the property. The agent sent the buyer's cost sheet to the buyer. The buyer could not open it, so in turn did not sign it and did not return it to the agent signed. And now a week before closing, he's saying, I didn't think I was paying $140 for the property. I thought I was paying $140 including closing costs. And now I'm seeing the closing statement saying I'm paying $140 plus closing costs. So it's a problem. It's a problem. It's a problem. Do we have that slide from today's meeting?
What is it?
That it's required right here. That it's according to the Real Estate Licensing and Recovery Act, you have to do a buyer's and seller's cost sheet. Okay, but we're not going to do a meeting this Monday, right?
No.
Okay. Provide the buyer and the seller before the buyer and the seller enter into an agreement of sale. The brokerage fee has to be explained, all under the closing costs. Mortgage payments and financial costs, taxes, settlement costs, as accurate as can be done. I don't expect you to get this to the penny, but we have people to help you with this if you need to do it, my manager or myself, and we want to get it close. And when I say close, Lauren, I'm talking about a couple $100. And usually I pad the numbers up a little bit, Jace, so that I'm a couple hundred more than they actually need. And then everybody is happy. If you're a couple $100 less, sometimes you get poopy face and an unhappy customer. And I want my customers to be happy because I want them to refer their friends, relatives, neighbors to me in the future. Uniform Condominium Act and Uniform Planned Community Act. The seller must furnish the buyers with copies of the development declaration, bylaws, and rules and regulations. Okay. Sellers must buyers are entitled to 5 days to review these documents. If they're not happy with that, Ellen, in 5 days, they can get out of the agreement. Sign an agreement on a condo, you get the rules and regs, you read that you can't have a dog more than 70 pounds, you have a 150-pound dog. Now you can say either I'm going to get rid of my dog, which anybody that would do that can't work for me because we love animals, okay? Or you say this condo unit ain't for me, okay? 5 days. Remember that, 5 days. How many days, Tam, do you have
5 days
to read those rules and regs for a condo or a planned community? Option versus opinion versus fact. Statements of opinion are permissible if there's no intent to deceive somebody. Intentional misrepresentation of a material fact is a violation if you're trying to harm or take advantage of another person. A contract could be disaffirmed or renounced, meaning canceled, if there's substantial misrepresentation. Unintentional misrepresentation or omission can be an issue the licensee should have known. So, you know, as hard as this stuff is to learn, Christine, as hard as this is, I'm going to tell you right now, this ain't playtime. You're dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars of people's money. And if you screw up, they will sue you and me. Okay? So even when you get through this, you have to really pay attention to the details in a real estate transaction. Yeah, you can make a lot of money. You can make a lot of money. Okay? But you could really cost somebody a lot of money too. So that's where you just can't be fluty. Maybe that's a good word to use. Puffing. You're not allowed to puff. What's puffing mean?
exaggerating the property.
Exaggerating the property. No puffing allowed. The agreement of sale is an offer to purchase. Is it a bilateral or unilateral agreement, Jared? Bilateral. It is. Good job. Because an agreement of sale, both parties have to act. The buyer has to buy, the seller has to sell. When you sign the offer, then it becomes an agreement of sale. It's just an offer in the meantime. Okay? It's a legally enforced contractual relationship between the buyer and the seller. And it dictates contents of the deed. Usually it refers to the deed because we know in the deed book volume and page number is a reference to exactly that property. The tax map number references that property. The property address, is that sufficient in a sales agreement? Why not, Seneca? Why not? Why isn't a property address a sufficient legal description?
It doesn't tell you the exact longitude and latitude.
Well, you see, you're a waitress, aren't you?
I am.
What's the place up there by the mall? Buffalo Wild Wings. I can see why you're a good waitress, because you just buffalo your way through.
Love Buffalo.
So she's like, give me that because it don't have a longitude or latitude. Really, what she was saying is that's the government survey system, and that is a way of describing a property where any competent surveyor could find that property. What are the other two types, other than longitude or latitude?
Rectangular.
No, that's rectangular. Rectangular is a comment. There's
Block.
lot and block, and what else? Meets and bounds. Okay, so you're not going to have that legal description in the deed, in the sales agreement, but you would have some type of reference to the deed, like a deed book volume and page number or a tax map number, so that they can look that up and then they could get that particular property and then they could find that location. A property address isn't sufficient. But is the property address in the sales agreement? Yeah. But you have to have more. Okay. It's a legally enforceable contract, and it dictates contents of the deed. I should probably say refers to the deed. Special terms, they need to be in there. Legal description of the property. Statement of the kind of condition of title. Usually there's a statement that says the seller is going to convey free and clear and marketable title. Okay. The kind of title, either special warranty or a general warranty. What's the difference between a special warranty and a general warranty?
Special warranty, isn't that for like FHA?
No. Nice try, Tam.
General warranty.
Now look at the word we're saying, warranty. General warranty. The seller is warranting what? Jared, you got your hand up. Or you stretching? Get some biceps, brother. You working out. Huh?
Special warranty of a certain thing? Like it's just one thing in general, like everything?
No. But that you're talking about something different. You're talking about something different with that. But a general warranty deed, the seller is warranting that the deed is free and clear of any clouds on a title, not only from the time he's owned it, but any other previous owners back to who? William Penn. Wasn't William Penn a general? Yeah, he was a general in the Army. That's how he got all that. Don't Google it because I'm making bullshit. Yeah. But you'll remember it that way.
Yeah.
A special warranty deed, Tam, you're only warranting the title is free of any clouds. And clouds are usually liens or encumbrances or other people's interests while the time you've owned the property. Now, what you're talking about, Tam, is the general, what was that? It was the general what? What was that? There was the general, I said, use Shaq sitting in that house, and he was representing the general for insurance, and that was typically, what was that? Go look at a book. Somebody tell me what the heck I'm talking about.
We're talking about the types of agency relationships.
There is that, what's the general, what's it called?
It says a general agent, they represent.
A general agent typically can represent somebody, but Shaq was sitting in that house, right? And typically the general agency is used for maybe a property manager who's managing an apartment building, because Shaq's sitting in that house and he's telling them, come on in, come on back. They left him. Come on back. And they can do just about anything the owner can do for that particular property. Now, the universal agent, look up in the sky, he can do anything that the person can do. Typically, that's not done in real estate. And then the special agent, not special warranty, he is typically the type of agency you have when you have an agreement, listing agreement with somebody. You guys will be okay. Vaughn, you're going to pass it on. Look how cool, calm she is. You ain't got Squirrel here with you today.
I know.
Yeah, I don't know. She wasn't out last night neither. I don't know why she's not here.
Is she working?
I don't think she's working. Maybe she is. Preparing the contract, just fill in the blanks. Typically, they're pre-printed forms. Avoid unauthorized practices of law. Boy, I'm always fighting with my agents about that because they want to write up addendums to the agreement. And I say the only person can write an write language, can write a contract, write language in a contract is who? An attorney or a broker. And then you have, so we've got to avoid that. And boy, that may just want to do that. You hear me screaming about that all the time, huh?
Oh,
Yeah, they think they're just attorneys.
yeah.
They just,
Addendum.
yeah, they just think they're attorneys, you know? Then you have the offer, you have earnest money, hand money, right? How soon does hand money have to be put in your escrow account? Next business day. And then a binder, we know what a binder is, right? When you're talking about sales agreements, not insurance, sales agreements. Same terminology could have different meanings. A binder is just a short form. Back in the day, when I got into real estate agents used to use a binder. It was like, Samantha, one-page form. Did you make an offer on that house?
We did.
Okay, how many pages were there?
We're gonna sign it later today.
Okay, well, you go to sign today, the contract's gonna have 13 pages. And then she's gonna have you sign all kinds of seller disclosure, right? Maybe a lead-based paint disclosure. She should. You're gonna know more than that agent. Don't tell that agent you're taking these classes. Okay, so before Samantha's gonna have to sign a 13-page contract. Okay, back in the day, they would have a one-page binder, just one page. Just some of you really, that 13-page contract would be summarized in one page. And it would just say buyer, seller, property, purchase price, financing. And then if everybody came to terms, then they would get into the 13-page agreement. Okay, we don't use a binder in my office. We don't use a binder. And most real estate companies don't anymore. A counteroffer. So an offer is where the buyer makes an offer to the seller, right? What happens if the seller accepts that offer? It's a done deal. So Samantha, in your case, and good luck on that today, if the seller accepts your offer just the way it is and doesn't make any changes, you have a transaction. You have a signed agreement. You have a binding.
We discussed the payment, we had to go out on our offer, but we agreed on the payment.
Oh, you did? Oh, that's nice. Was it verbal?
No.
But then
Not included in the first, it's a foreclosure, so they're going to a bank,
is there an agent involved?
yeah.
Okay.
It's going between us and the bank.
So who are you negotiating with?
The real estate agent,
Your real estate lady? And who's she negotiating with?
the bank.
The bank. So it's the bank's property. Okay. I thought there was a law in Pennsylvania that the real estate agent was involved, the contracts had to be in writing. Ain't that what we said?
Well,
If-
that's what we're gonna do later.
Right. That's what you're gonna do later, to have a binding contract. That's what you're gonna do. So right now, you ain't got squat until you get it right. So you have a verbal back and forth. Now, at that bank, and don't get me in the grease. Don't say Tom Simon said anything. Any advice you're like asking me, don't do that to me, okay? You wouldn't do that to me, would you? Okay. Because you get in trouble for interfering with a contract. I don't want to interfere with a contract. I haven't interfered yet, have I? Okay, good. I got witnesses. So let's take you out of the equation because you're not a good example. Let's say Ellen makes Lauren an offer. And if Lauren accepts that offer just the way it is, now you have a binding contract if you sign it. You have to sign it and you have to give her a copy back. Signed, sealed, and delivered. Okay? But as soon as you make it, if you decide you don't like something with that contract and you make a change, now what you're basically doing is making a counteroffer, right? But really, you're not making a counteroffer, you're making a new offer. Do you understand that? She's making a new offer. And what you're doing, Samantha, verbally like that, that's very, very common practice. It's very, very common practice. But all offers need to be in writing to be binding. You know, certain situations, I don't know, could talk about. You were just a bad example. You're a bad example, Samantha.
Well, I mean, technically,
Does it sound you?
no.
Okay, because the bank said that they would accept 102,000, let's say. Okay? You're all excited. Right? You think you got that property as soon as you sign this contract, right?
Not yet, 'cause we still have, we're doing the inspection and all that. And we-
Okay, but still, you think you have a binding agreement. If somebody came to the bank tomorrow, if I call that bank up right now and said, I'll give them $300,000 for that property, they may kick you to the curb and get higher property. But until you get it in writing, you don't have a binding agreement. See what I'm saying? And your binding agreement, once you sign it today, will have contingencies in it. And one of the contingencies would be the inspections. You see what I'm saying? But you have to have the contract first. You have to have the contract first. You are an example because it's land and it's one of their properties. So good politician told me one time, never ask somebody a question unless you know what the answer is going to be. Acceptance of the agreement. So once the agreement is signed by everybody, it's accepted. You are allowed to use electronic signatures. Are you going to use electronic signatures or are you going to do it in person, Samantha? You're going to use electronic. Perfectly fine. Okay. Equitable title. After the contract is created, before the deed is conveyed. So Ellen selling to Lauren. They sign the contract. Soon as Lauren signs that contract, even though she hasn't closed on the transaction, because she has inspections too, you want to do a title search, you have an equitable interest in that property. Okay? So, Samantha, once you sign that contract, you're going to have an equitable interest in that property. You've heard that term before, haven't you? Right? So you should insure that interest. You should insure that interest. So you should probably go talk to your agent, but you have equitable interest. So let's say what the book says. I'm not using you anymore, Samantha, because I don't want you to plant too many seeds in your head and you say, well, Simon told me this. You said you wouldn't do that. And I got witnesses you wouldn't. But after the contract is created, but before the deed is delivered, typically that's the inspection period, the buyer has an insurable interest in the property, but not a legal title. They just have an equitable interest, Jace, okay, which transfers only by delivery of the deed. So a lot of times we'll tell the buyer, you have an equitable interest in this property, you should go get your insurance binder that will protect you in case that there's a fire and the place burns down or there's a problem. Destruction of the premises. If the buyer is responsible for the property after the contract is created, let me repeat that. The buyer is responsible for the property after the contract, not the deed bond. The contract is created, but before the deed is delivered, unless the contract or the seller is negligent. Both ensure their respective equitable interest. Now, Samantha, you may have a contract that says you have a right to assign it. Okay? Maybe look for that language. You're probably not going to look at nothing. You're going to digitally sign that 13 pages and probably not read anything because that's what a person does. But whenever it's said and done, print the damn thing out. Look at it. It probably says you cannot assign. But if you could assign, if it says that contract's assignable, you could go on the open market and advertise that property for sale, that you want to sell your interest in it because you have an equitable interest. And if you were going to pay $102,000 for that property, you could sell that property because you have an equitable interest in it to Bonnie for $120,000. You can keep the 18 and then give the 102 to the seller. Does that scenario sound a little familiar to you? We talked about that a couple weeks ago. That's how you have an equitable interest in it. So if the contract is assignable, you can assign your rights to somebody else, take a little bit more money, take the difference, as long as the seller's getting their 102. Okay? But an equitable interest is a legal title. You can't possess the property, right? Samantha, you can't possess the property, but you do have an equitable interest in that property. When we were talking about mortgages and title, a title state Didn't that word equitable interest come across our paths before? In the title state, don't they convey title to the lender? And then the lender has a trustee, had a beneficiary. No, a trustee would hold that equitable interest in it. They don't have a right to possess, but they do have an interest in it. I don't know. Maybe we're getting into too much. I'll quit using you as Samantha, but you're going to let me know if you make that deal work. Okay? Don't call me for any legal advice at this point, but, or don't ask me for Samantha, don't ask me for any legal advice, because I don't want to step on your agent's toes. Okay? That's what you're supposed to do, guys. You don't think people call me every day and say, hey, Tom, I'm in a contract. How should I handle it? Ooh. You got to talk to your agent. I don't want to step on your agent's toes. That's against the law to interfere with another contract, especially if I'm trying to say, Samantha, get out of that deal because I got the perfect house for you. So break that contract. That's against the law. Parts of the sales agreement, I'm not going to go through them all. They identify the purchaser, the property, the deed, the financing, the mortgage contingency, the closing details, the evidence of title, the proration details, how we're going to prorate taxes, what happens if there's a default, there's liquidated damages, the dates everybody signed the contract, what personal properties included, special assessments if there are any, does the buyer have a right for a final walkthrough, and other details. It would also have contingencies, mortgage contingency, inspection contingencies, maybe contingency of another property for sale, contingent on, I'll buy your property, Savannah, Seneca, if I could sell my property first, okay? And then there may be amendments and addendums, okay, to the agreement. And there could be disclosures, agency disclosure, real estate recovery fund disclosure, zoning, lead-based paint, limiting the liability. Who's your client? We know who the client is. It's the person you have a written contract with to represent. What are your duties to the client? We have to disclose the agency if you're representing both parties. A lot of times the agreements have time of the essence. If you don't meet those dates, somebody's in default. And there are disclosure duties. Okay? Then there are other types of agreements. There's option agreements. Is an option a unilateral or bilateral contract? What is it? Unilateral. There's only one party has to perform. Okay, and then you have the option or the optionee. Who's the optionor? In a sales contract, if I have a property and I'm giving Bonnie the option to buy it, who's the optionor? The seller. And Bonnie would be the optionee, and it's only enforceable by the optionee. Installment contract, we know those are, what are they? I bought my first rental property with an installment contract. Under financing. Remember I said I bought my first property in Jenkins Creek off Charles Bay Smith? They financed it with no money down. I made payments for 10 years. We did an installment land contract at that time. They were the, was Charles and Betty the vendor or the vendee? They were the vendor. Did you look at the back of the book and confirm that for me? Because that would be contrary to the mortgagor and mortgagee. So look at the definition of a vendor or a vendee in the back of the book. First one to get it, put your hand up, let me know.
Is Mallory still in charge?
No. We have to deal with Joe T. And this is going to be the last slide, so you can end that as soon as I'm done here.
Okay.
As soon as I find out who the vendor and vendee is. Excuse me? Yes, on an installment contract.
The vendor is the seller.
The vendor is the seller. And the vendee is the buyer. So the vendor is the seller. The vendee is the buyer. even though the vendor is holding the mortgage. And they can do that through a contract of deed or a land contract. Okay, that will end. Boy, we got through 2 units this morning. Andrea, you can escape out of the YouTube thing. Thanks for tuning in, anybody that paid attention to